Come back.
Hello? Yeah, hi, this is Chris. Yo, what's happening? I'm so glad you called.
Chapter 3 Pilgrimage. California's Mountains. We are fortunate in California in that the land is endowed with great natural resources. There are hundreds of miles of beaches, several great deserts, rainforests of the north, giant saguaro forest in the center, and the glacial carved granite peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. The famous naturalist John Muir explored and studied the Sierra Nevada at the turn of the century. He established trails, climbing routes, parks, and made the mountains famous through his study and writing. He described it as the range of light. When the sun rises on the east facing granite walls and peaks, you see a subtle beauty not often seen, we know, as alpenglow. The Sierra Nevada mountains were formed as the last ice age melted and slid great glaciers across the continent, carving mountains and canyons. The famed Yosemite Valley is one of California's best examples. As a child, I visited these mountains on ski trips, hiking trips, and overnight camping. As an adult, I have continued to experience California, and wilderness travel has become a passion and a necessity. This past year, I had a few sports injuries that stopped me from hiking. I missed the mountains, and to return became a great goal. Many months before, I recall a camping trip to Joshua Tree National Park. I was with my sister Robin and our friend Alan Seidemann. It was strange not being able to walk well, and I just sat there at the picnic table in that amazing place. But movement was what I reached for. This past summer, 2001, during August, I attained again the health and permits to enter the mighty High Sierra. There are so many ways to experience California's range of light. Call Yosemite National Park and reserve a room in a lodge. Visit a wilderness store like REI or Adventure 16 to find information and equipment for camping and backpacking. Buy yourself a map and utilize your own spirit of adventure to plan yourself a trip. While using all these tools, I planned my own trip to visit the High Sierra. I chose to hike to the North Fork of Lone Pine Creek Trail and the Mountaineers Route. I had hiked this route many times before and found again that it is easy to get to. From San Diego, you use the Interstate 15 North, 215 North, 15 North, 395 North. Highway 395 crosses the wide and hot Mojave Desert. I prefer to drive it across at night or in the afternoon. It takes about 4 hours to reach Lone Pine in the Whitney Portal Road from San Diego. If you need a meal or still have things to buy, stop in town to visit the many stores and family-owned restaurants. Be sure to stop at the Mount Whitney Ranger Station to get your permits or send away for them in the mail. After the ranger station, you turn left on Whitney Portal Road and continue up into the mountains for a half hour. There is plenty of parking at the Whitney Portal Campground and Mount Whitney Trailhead. I park there, shoulder my backpack, and begin a long hike into the mountains. Be absolutely sure your car is clean of any food and camping gear. Bears often look into cars, and if they see something, even a little lipstick and coins by the shifter, they will break in to get it. I am lucky on this visit to have 9 days of freedom, having just quit my job. I take the extra time to hike slow and less miles each day. I spend a day or two at each of the three lakes as I make my way up the canyon to Mount Whitney. Snow has mostly melted into the rock, streams flow clear and clean, and the stars show bright, helped by the new moon darkness. In all directions, towers of granite loom, illuminated in starlight. There are so many ways to enjoy the High Sierra. Down along the highway and up into the mountains there are campgrounds. Be sure to register for a permit early through the mail or phone. For wilderness permits, it is the same, and I usually get mine a few weeks before or at the ranger station in town. Then you take the mini and long trails or hike and climb into the backcountry to more remote areas. I can't explain it, but the mountains there are beautiful, kind, and alive. I return again and again, finding things I had left behind, learning new skills through experiences that last a lifetime. We all have places we call home, places full of memories. I am lucky to visit the summit of Mount Russell through the East Arete route, repeating a climb I did once before. I make the hike pre-dawn, under stars and a headlight, to see the sunrise from the cliffs of the Arete just off the summit. Later in the week, I make it to the top of Mount Whitney for the first time, a fun and social affair. Many trails converge on the summit from different routes, some long, taking several days, and some steep and short, taking several ropes. Over 100 people converge, meet, and share the endless views atop the roof of California. On any climb or hike, the zenith appears to be the summit moment after so many days and steps up the mountain. In reality, though, the joy is revealed as you realize the journey is over half over, and now you get to return through all the twists and turns of the mountain environment, but now with a new perspective, in reverse and towards home. Journey to the Himalaya. It felt normal to me as a child and as a teen to want to go to Mount Everest, not to climb it, just to see it and experience getting to it. As a young adult, I realized it would be very cool to go there. But how? TV shows and movies make it seem so remote and adventurous, and the ads and magazines make it clearly very expensive. I often hear about shoe-sting travelers, no fear, free-spirited travelers, and always I keep my hopes up. So things have finally settled down with me. A few years have passed with great adventures and bonding with my sisters and brothers. Maybe I have finally come down from the adventure of divorce and the death of my brother to realize again that I am free and forever will be so, and I begin to dream a new adventure. It turns out that one of my dad's friends loves the Himalaya. He's been there 3 times and to Everest twice. So I put it in Dad's ear that maybe, if Jim goes again, he could take us along. I want to go to Everest. So a year goes by and the word gets around, and sure enough, he is interested. It is February 2001 when our friend Jim comes over. The evening starts in the living room as my mom makes dinner. Dad, my sister Robin, and I sit eating snacks and sipping wine as Jim unfolds maps and begins telling adventure stories. Mom comes in every few minutes to take a sip of wine and smile as we listen. Jim begins. I want to go to Everest on the treks to base camp in both Tibet and Nepal. We soon realized this would be no ordinary vacation, as Jim tells stories from his 5 visits to the Himalaya, his favorite place. The idea feels real and attainable for the first time. After dinner, we take down a large painting on the wall, clear the table, and set up the slide projector. Death by slides, he says, as he makes jokes about the usual boredom of having to sit through a vacation slideshow. But this is different. This slideshow takes us on the Khumbu Trail to Everest. Yeah, let's go trekking. We say, and then we spread out the maps again to plan and set dates. We have 9 months to go before the start of the dry season in October. It is 5 months to go. Tickets purchased, hotel in Kathmandu paid for, and now we wait. Dad is a little nervous, worried about his knees and the altitude. Jim jokes, a Sherpa porter is only $7 a day, and 2 of them can carry your dad. I just finished reading The Lonely Planet Nepal. Wow, so many temples, mountains, and things to see. The Himalaya has been getting a lot of press lately, and it feels that everyone has an opinion about it. Base camp, the trendy new buzzword. Oh, yeah, base camp. I gotta go there. Over and over I hear this, but now it is my turn for the once in a lifetime journey, or maybe twice. It is crazy, but recall the Nepali prince killing the whole royal family, then the September 11th tragedy in the USA war in Afghanistan. China and Pakistan closed their borders along the Himalaya and Karakoram ranges, and we think our trip will be canceled with just 1,000 miles from Nepal. Mama's a little nervous, but the trip is still on in 15 days. We leave San Diego at dawn, passing through low clouds to LA as the sun rises over the mountains of Southern California. The mysterious undulations of the landscape mirror our own hidden path we'll soon be following. One down and three to go, Dad says as we land in LA and board a jet for Korea. 13 hours later, we cross the Incheon Delta. During an incredible sunset, we wait, hearing news of the third bombing raid on Afghanistan. 5 hours to Bangkok, Thailand, and there we spend the night in a hotel near the airport, struggling to sleep in the steamy, thick air. It is funny. The next morning, after all the security checks for sharp objects, they give us real silverware on the Thai Airways flight, serrated knives even. Box cutters for all, we joke, calling it the Terrorist Equalization Act. Give everyone a knife, and we would have to cut some terrorist throats before they could even take over the plane. With the morning flight over India and Burma, we land in the tropical Kathmandu Valley. We exit the airport through a wall of tiny people shouting and grabbing at us. So many people, just like the movies, like water flowing all around us. In our crowded taxi, hands come through the windows. Give me $1, they say. It is fun through the busy city, swerving and honking as motorcycles and bikes sweep by. Kathmandu quickly feels like home as you learn to weave your way down narrow, busy streets. It is a strange blend of scenic beauty, poverty, and filth. You look past this, up the 5-story brick buildings into the sky, and see the hundreds of kites flying from children on every rooftop. There you'll feel the newness of life again, those feelings we hope to experience on a vacation. I watch the kites, hear the children laugh, and with every twist of the kite string, my smile begins again. Tibet, a Himalayan road trip. Tibet is a book, a novel, and no short story could ever contain or describe the vast and remote high-altitude sea that it is. To move through it is to be in a state of wonder and amazement. Hardships may follow, like problems of bad food and water, acute mountain sickness, and the usual cold. But despite this, it becomes impossible to complain, as the visions you experience and the smiling faces of the friendly Tibetan people put everything in perspective. You persevere, have fun, and enjoy life while achieving your goal of the journey. What little I knew of Tibet made it appear strange and vast. What was the Tibetan Plateau? How big is Mount Everest? And what does it look like? Tibet is far to the east, remote, sacred, and interesting. I know the only way to understand it and experience it was to come and see it. Our trip is guided and planned by a good friend. He is experienced in the Himalayas and makes things easy and affordable. The best times to enter are October and November, just after the monsoons of summer and before winter. We find a great wholesale tour company to book our trip to Tibet. We did it in advance over the internet. With Explore Nepal Risha Tours, we hire a guide, a driver, and a 4x4 Land Cruiser for a 2-week drive to Everest Base Camp. From the Tibet capital of Lhasa, Tibet's basement at 12,000 feet, we explore great palaces, Buddhist monasteries, and temples. During the rough off-road adventure, we cross rivers, boulder fields, and high-altitude passes to reach the center of the Himalayas. We spend 2 nights of clear skies below the giant north wall of Mount Everest at the Rongbuk Monastery guest house, 8 miles below base camp. I remember a solo hike Pre-dawn along the stream, I follow the road and stars towards the giant shadow of Everest. The whispering stream and twinkling stars send me into a daze and dream as I pass herds of deer and see the first glow of dawn striking the roof of the world. I return hitchhiking a ride in a very large junk truck from a friendly Tibetan. The journey continues, then in reverse, as we move away from Everest. Moving across the plateau, we see other giant peaks like Cho Oyu, Shishapangma, and Langtang. Passing close to these peaks, we visit border towns while passing through the Himalayas. The road makes the final 7,000-foot descent of a canyon to inch Nepal and the lush forested foothills of the Nepal-Kathmandu Valley. The canyon, as it changes from high-altitude peak and ridge to forest and hill, displays an unbelievable panorama of scenes. Waterfalls erupt by the hundreds, varied and abundant, some falling thousands of feet. Highlights continue throughout the trip. The trip begins and ends in Kathmandu, a fun place, urban and cheap. Generations of mountaineers and travelers have called it home. Shopping is great, with textiles, jewelry, clothes, and mountain gear for cheap. We stay in the section of Tamil at the Kathmandu guest house. Outside our door are many fine restaurants, shops, and bars. Leaving Kathmandu by jet for Tibet dramatically ushers you into the new world. The fight rises in minutes to parallel the Himalayan mountains. Out the window stream the many peaks, close and clear. Near the summit of Mount Everest, the jet turns and begins a slow cruise over the rising sea of mountains into the dry land of Tibet. The airport in Gangar is huge, of military proportions, with a long runway stretching through the valley. There is only one flight a day. After customs and passport screening, you enter Tibet and are met by the guide, driver, and the land cruiser. The journey continues with a 2-hour drive to the city of Lhasa. The drive is along a paved highway, the Freedom Highway. Alongside the road meanders the massive and endless Brahmaputra River, Tibet's largest and India's most sacred. Traveling through the villages in the truck, you cross passes and descend gorges roaring with emerald rivers and giant still lakes. Truckers in yak caravans trade goods in and out of the region. Roads are rough, weather is rough, and each one takes their cargo as far as it can go in a series of remote trade-offs. The whole experience is unforgettable, and I already think of returning. Luckily for me, this is only the first half of the trip, and we return to the Himalaya on the Nepal side to go trekking. We receive a chance to see again the different people, the endless directions to explore, and the amazing views from atop the roof of the world. Border crossing, Himalayan style. It is October 23rd, 2001, my 32nd birthday, and just 2 days before we were at the base of Mount Everest in Tibet. From there, it takes all day to descend in the Land Cruiser over rough roads and river crossings to reach Tingri, an island village on the dry plateau where a long horizon gives views of Everest and others. I spend the afternoon sick and resting, battling altitude and bad food. Between naps, I pump water from the well to wash some clothes. The next morning, I wake from my many strange dreams. I pack and join the travelers and guides in the smoke-filled tea room to force down some eggs and fresh chapati bread. Just keep the yak butter away and I won't get sick. By 10, we load the truck and begin through the Himalaya towards Nepal on the tour of a lifetime. Our truck stops in the village to get gas. We wait in the truck as men siphon out of a 50-gallon drum. Skinned goats hang all over on houses and storefronts, drying in the sun as large trucks drive in and out. Soon we begin the Gurjert Road, 150 kilometers to reach Nilam, a Tibetan mountain border village between two of the largest mountains in the world, Shishapangma and Langtang. We drive through a long valley, and giant peaks are in view with glaciers flowing onto the golden dry land below. Old Gurkha forts lay in stages of ruins on hilltops from wars long ago. We approach a pass at 5,500 meters, exposing a breathtaking panorama of nearby Shishapangman at 8,021 meters. Many great mountains stretch out in a line beyond. At the pass, rocks are piled in prayer, with many tall poles wrapped and strung with prayer flags, flapping in the usual wind. From there, viewing the roof of the world, we descend a great gorge to the high mountain border town of Nilam at 3,850 meters. We cross a bridge and enter the tiny town. It is nasty, like a junkyard town in a dry and sharp wilderness, with truckers, booze, hookers, wind, dust, goat parts in the street, and crap all over. Our guide tries to trick us into a bad hotel, but our buddy Jim speaks up. He'd been there before and gets us into the Snowland Hotel. This is the place where every expedition has stayed for decades. We get our rooms and have a late lunch in the tiny empty dining room with the owner. As I eat my birthday lunch of black tea, mushroom soup, and rice, he speaks to us with great English and tells stories. The climbing season is over by now, but about 41 expeditions came through Nilam this fall, with 14 on Cho-Oyu and 26 on Shishapangman, and a very few others to Everest. He shows us the boots that Alex Lowe gave him. He died tragically in an avalanche just a few years before. He says Alex could hike from here in Nilam to Shishapangman Base Camp in 4 hours. The average person hikes it in 8 with no pack. The expeditions stay here in this hellhole to hike the nearby hills for acclimatization. I yearn to that as well. The bathroom is up on the roof, across a small sunlit patio with twisted metal scraps lying in corners. We look out across the town and realize Reinhold Messner must have stayed here many times, the greatest mountaineer of all time. We talk and plan our hiking trip in Nepal that we will begin in just a few days. I watch the scene down on the main street. Men are digging a hole by a broken fire hydrant in the mud. Yaks are tied up nearby, and big trucks stop by for moments on their journeys back and forth. We go to the same place for dinner, joining other travelers for smiles and conversation. I even have a beer before we retire to our rooms to sleep. At 1:30 we wake to the sound of a yak howling out front. It sounds sad. More yaks arrive, men partying, dogs and large rats all over the roof. At 7 we get up and pack, having a slow breakfast while saying goodbye to other tours. At 8:30 in the numbing cold and under blue skies, we continue our truck tour through the canyons of the Himalaya. Snowy crags high in the sky catch the morning alpine light as we descend towards Nepal. I didn't know it at the time. It wasn't something they put in the catalogs or on posters in the travel offices. But as we cross the backbone of the mountains in the sky and descend off the Tibetan plateau, we enter the canyon of 1,000 waterfalls, enchanting and powerfully sublime. On a map I see Milarepa, the great 12th century teacher, has his cave near here. We notice the trees starting to change and this strange Jurassic tropical gorge where waterfalls stretch from out of view high in the sky as ribbons tangling the misty emerald cliffs. It is scary on the narrow dirt road cut from the sheer crumbling mountainside where rock slides calmly smash sections of the road away. At one point we inch our truck around a huge bulldozer, moving boulders and clearing the road. It is just a few hours, but enough to leave us enchanted until today. Halfway through the Emerald Waterfall Gorge, we reach Zangmu, a village cut from the cliffs high above the raging river. This is the border between China and Nepal. We change money in some madness at a 74% rate and enter the disembarkation form line for passports and baggage check, then back into our truck to the Nepali border village of Kodari, not far down the canyon. We pack the case of beers we've been carrying for 1,000 miles and shoulder our packs, walking across the bridge high over the raging river to a small passport office on the other side. We pay some money, get a stamp, and hop into a big tourist bus waiting from the tour company. From there, the canyon continues to go on forever through jungle foothills, villages and around tight, narrow corners to our new home away from home in Kathmandu. More than once, as the bus races the two-lane highway through the Nepali tropical mountains, we pass a bus full beyond belief, with the roof stacked with as many people as can hold on. Nepal, trekking to Everest. After 2 weeks of touring Tibet and the Himalayas by 4x4, I am happy to start something new and return to the comforts of Kathmandu for a few days. We are about to begin a journey by foot into the mountains of Nepal and towards Mount Everest. I am certain to enjoy hiking better than driving, as each step into the mountains you greet the earth with your feet. The journey begins at 4:15 a.m. We have an early flight to catch. I wake and step outside to vomit over the railing and into the flowers, the fruit drink from the last evening still working in my stomach, an inevitable side effect of third world travel. We stay at the Kathmandu guest house, with great and varied rooms and gardens located in the center of town. We pack our final things and make our way into the dark streets to find a taxi. We arrive early, just before the airport opens. Soon we check in, pay the airport taxes, and pass through security. We have a flight on a small 13-seat prop plane called a Twin Otter. From Kathmandu at 4,500 feet, we make a 45-minute flight to the mountain village of Lukla at 10,000 feet. At times, the flight is a little scary, mostly at the end, as the plane drops suddenly to land on a small uphill runway on the side of a steep canyon. Things get a little busy as you exit into the wind and noise near the propeller. You grab your bags and move out onto the sidewalk and dirt paths leading into the village and houses, guest houses and shops. Porters, guides, and tour leaders descend upon the tourists to get work, and we choose to visit a local tea house, the Echo Paradise Lodge, to book rooms, relax, and eat lunch. The woman there takes care of finding us porters and a guide while we eat in the restaurant with the constant sights and sounds of planes and helicopters coming and going just outside. We have 2 weeks to enjoy the mountains. From that moment on, our days are scheduled for early rise, repack all the gear for the porters, small breakfast, and begin to hike by 7 or 8. We flow in a single file along narrow and rocky trails. The trails are full of people, guides, porters, trekkers, and the often caravan of loaded yaks. Be sure to make space for them and move to the mountainside of the trail. If you get bumped by the huge beast or poked by the horns, you want to fall into the bushes or mountain and not off a cliff. The first day we reach Phakding, after only a few hours. Here we spend the night in the village along the roaring river and in the forest. The climate and mountains change rapidly over the next few days as we continue each day to higher ridges and more remote villages. Soon you pass through the gate and enter Sagarmatha National Park, Nepal's name for Mount Everest. Nepal is an interesting place, and you enjoy the exotic landscapes and experiences. The park is very full of people, mostly Europeans. People from all over the world converge and become friends. We join up with several men from Australia on the same trek, and it is nice to meet someone new to share the trip and make it bigger. Many famous trekking routes in the Himalaya can be at moderate altitudes, but like the Himalaya in general, the Khumbu rises quickly to high altitudes. By the 5th day, we have ascended through the village of Namche Bazar, the Tangboche Monastery at 12,000 feet, to Dingbeshe at 14,000 feet, and to Lobushe at 16,000 feet. At Lobushe, we are alongside the Great Khumbu Glacier, which spreads up the canyon for over 10 miles to reach the final walls of Mount Everest. The next day takes us to our final destination of Gorak Shep. From there, we continue on a long hike through the glacier moraine and across the glacier to reach the Everest base camp at 17,000 feet, just below the giant Khumbu icefall. The glacier makes sounds, moans, and cracks as large boulders nearby often slip and tumble from their balancing act on the ice. Mountain faces hang with glaciers and occasionally fill with thunder as avalanches crash through. The hour we spend at base camp is not enough. We hike back off the glacier to spend the night in the plywood shack they call a tea house at Gorak Shep. The next morning we wake early to hike to the top of a hill which becomes the mountain Kalapatar at 18,700 feet, our highest altitude of the trip. From there, the glacier-carved canyons swirl below and lead up to the summits of many peaks, including Mount Everest, Lhotse Peak, and the South Col. The journey, while complete, is not over. We have another week to slowly descend away from this cool and cold paradise and return into the forested and river-filled canyons back to Lukla. The full moon lit our nights, and clear skies allow our plane to return to Kathmandu. We are excited and in awe from our experience. With so many memories running through our heads, we are a little overwhelmed. The last few days are spent eating and shopping, inhaling the Nepal experience. Now, after the long, intense flight home, we are able to dream and remember our journey to the roof of the world in the Nepal Himalayas. Peruvian Soul. Once I planned the trip to Everest, everything seemed possible. It gave me the power to do what I had really wanted to do for several years, quit my job. I was living at home, made okay money, and I saved. Our family is close and supportive. Shit, I went to the Himalaya with my dad, so when they heard my latest harebrained idea, they were of course supportive, but I suppose a little nervous. For a few years now, I had hooked up with the infamous artist of San Diego, Mario Torero. With him, I volunteered on projects in Barrio Logan and Chicano Park. We painted murals, worked with children, and imagined great things together. I believe it was in 1999, and we were working on an art show together for Art Walk San Diego. That same weekend, his mother had a heart attack. Mario had moved from Peru as a teen and had never been back. So for him, it was heart attack, art attack, and he knew he had to go to Peru for himself and his family before his mother died. We looked at each other and said, "Let's go to Peru." Fuerza. Our group of San Diego artists began a tour of Peru to initiate a cross-cultural arts exchange called Pilgrimage to Machu Picchu. It's a continuation of our plan to unify separate peoples and continents through the flow of tourism, education, art making, and adventure, says Mario Torero, the organizer. He continues, "On the journey, we encounter indigenous roots while performing ceremonial rites, art workshops with children, painting murals with the community, and working towards various artistic goals." The trip begins December 2001 with Derek Ensminger, Berenice Badillo, Christopher Oleata, Pablo Acevedo, Lucia Acevedo, and Mario Torero, traveling to the first stop on their adventure, the capital city of Lima. The flight is not long, 8 hours from San Diego. The cost is also reasonable, at about $600 round trip. Arriving into Lima by day, be surprised by the lengthy panoramic of sea and sand. Lima is a city of nearly 8 million, spread along the edge of a vast coastal desert. Beaches stretch for days in either direction. This is truly a giant metropolis, an old city, dense and growing. Mario is originally from Lima. 32 years ago. We stayed at the house of his aunt, Shabuca, and entered the family tree. Shabuca lives in the town of Chorrillos, 30 minutes away from the airport and along the southern points of the bay. A quick barter for a taxi and you arrive at places like Barranco Plaza, Miraflores Plaza, and Playa Herradura, the world-famous surf break. Within the urban maze of Lima, you will find great restaurants, live music clubs, bars, and cathedrals. Buildings and cathedrals are often painted bright colors that glow warm in the Lima tropical heat during summer. Out walking, you enter the Peruvian soul as you hear new sounds, música criolla, música ambiente, cumbia, and people talking in a romantic scene. I met a woman, Carolina. She was born in Ancash, a state several hours north of Lima. But like many, she has family in Lima, and now, at 26, she says she is from Lima. She begins. Being Peruvian is great, especially as I have had the experience of living abroad to see many different things. I find that people are very interested in Peru, its ancient cultures, but they know a lot about Peru's recent history of La Guerrilla, terrorism. I see the Andes, the Amazon, the surfing. I am proud and embarrassed, mostly proud. Every country has bad things. She smiles while remembering her childhood and continues in regards to the prospect of going to live in Lima. But I don't want to live here, the pollution and the smoke. I want to stay in Cusco. Cusco es el máximo. I understand and recall another part of our mission to Peru, to make Peru and its position known and hopefully better. You see, Carolina is one of the lucky ones. She is tall, with wine-colored hair and deep brown eyes. The dark locks of her hair twist and turn as a jungle vine over ear and shoulder. She is smart, educated, and like the few, she is experiencing her dream of living in Cusco. I find that most in Lima have never been to Cusco, and yet it is their dream to do so, and in their hearts the true capital of Peru. What Carolina reminds us of is Lima's wonderful people. They find an eagerness to smile despite the current dismal economical and social situation. So enter Lima joyfully, yet cautious, among the tall old buildings, seas of buses, smoke, and people. Hold your bag in close, your friends in close, your eyes alert, and you will be just fine. When I first arrive into Lima, I think it is best to just exchange some money right at the airport. You get your money, bags, a safe taxi, and you're off. If it's around noon or you're hungry, then ask your taxi driver if he knows a good place to eat. Sometimes in the twisty game of hiring a taxi, I use the restaurant thing as a bartering tool. I ask first, who knows a great restaurant? And they forget about money and remember their Lima pride and want to show you something in their town. I prefer ceviche, huge portions of savory fresh fish. From there, visit the Plaza de Armas, Plaza de San Martin, Chinatown, while finding a moment for the church and convent Las Nadarenas. There is the home of the sacred mural wall called the Lord of the Miracles. Days could be spent roaming downtown. The river Rimac passes by with old and abandoned neighborhoods on the other side. There are large bridges with great views across the urban jungle. Just up ahead and a short taxi ride is Cristo Mountain with spectacular views from 500 meters up. Below, the city spreads as a fluid carpet. Endless adobe neighborhoods blend in with the smog rippling off in the distance. On other days, visit the Plaza San Martin and the Artist Cultural Center of El Averno, just down La Quilca, past the old theater. It seems that on our way to many interesting places, we pass an old theater. If you are into shopping and seeing culture, then you have to visit the Central Market behind the cathedral in the Plaza de Armas and the Artesian Market on Avenida de la Marina on the other side of town. There you'll find all the textiles, jewelry, clothes, and Peruvian collectibles you could ever want. The Central Market spans many blocks and sells everything imaginable, really everything. As you have heard, she does not want to live in Lima, but do not let that stop you from visiting this massively enjoyable city. To visit Peru is to visit Lima, and Peru is a wonderful place. There is the long, hot coast, wide and tall Andes mountains, mazes of jungles, and the Amazon basin. Basin. Lima is the capital of Peru, a city rich in culture, art, and energy. Entering Peru is like entering a great funnel. You spin into this small country and pop out the other side on a new adventure daily. After several days, we leave Lima as we have another 2 months to slowly enter the soul of Peru towards Arequipa, Puno, Lake Titicaca, and continue our pilgrimage to Machu Picchu in Cusco. The monkey. There are a lot of things you can say with the word monkey. Some of them are very funny. Return of the monkey gang. Wash your monkey. Crunchy monkey. Have you seen this monkey? She called me a monkey, and the list goes on. We discover that trapped within these curious word games hides the key to young woman's journey into craziness. Late at night, as I dance at a club, feeling the embrace of a young Peruvian kiss, I have to leave in a hurry as a young woman from San Diego is scheduled to arrive and join our trip. Because I am tour leader, I take on the responsibility of handling these things. I don't know her, and it seems I never will. She appears happy, yet can't speak Spanish, does not have much money, and really knows nothing about Peru. Her boyfriend, though, is part of our team of artists. It's all good, he would say, repeatedly. We go to the airport together at midnight to get her, happy and glowing, floating in a state of bliss. In the morning, I meet the young woman from the night before in the Plaza de Armas, and we go to the beach, La Playa Herradura. Some hours later, the entire group arrives, and we sit on the balcony of a restaurant and drink beer all afternoon as the small waves roll up onto the pebble beach. Many hours are spent laughing in the warm air, telling stories, and learning the language. In the early afternoon, Mario has enough, and he splits, while the rest of us begin a walk along the shore and out along the path to the rocky point among the tide pools. It is a romantic afternoon, out in the sun. The sounds of the waves relax us, and we watch the waves arc into the horseshoe-shaped bay. The endless coast of Lima is in view within a panorama that stretches for miles. It is time to leave. Try to get some dinner and return home with just enough time to repack and catch the all-night bus to Arequipa. Derek falls in the water, and Pablo jumps into the water with his clothes on, but the tour guide and me works to end the party and move the group towards the city. As we make our way off the rocky point and to the beach, we realize our little group is a mess, wet and dirty. Just as we reach the beach, there is a man there, drunk and obnoxious, like us. He is there with his girlfriend. Things get a little disorganized as this guy talks to us, and we are trying to load 6 into a small taxi. I am in the back of the car with the new young woman in our group. We'll call her the monkey for this story. There are lots of talking and noise as Estefita, Derek's new Peruvian friend, gives directions for a Chinese restaurant in Miraflores. We are having a lot of fun, making comments at each other, laughing and telling stories. The bus ride we are about to take is a series of 2 14-hour rides. It will be tough and a long time before we have a clean shower and beds waiting for us. Berenice turns to Monkey and says, "Man, we are going to be on that bus for a long time. We got to get home and wash our monkeys." I have never heard the term before, but I understand it to mean that Berenice wants to go home and take a shower before the long trip. For some reason, Monkey takes it wrong, thinking she is being called a monkey, nigger, or something like that, of which she is not. In that moment, like a slight breeze sneaking into a cave lit only by a single tenuous flame of a candle, the light goes out, and we are plunged into the darkness of a cave I have never seen before, a cave of sadness and twisted pain, a cave of despair and confusion. Monkey begins yelling, cursing, and saying we called her a monkey or a nigger. It takes a long time to reach the restaurant. Yet what seems hours are only minutes. The rest of the taxi is not really paying much attention, but I am next to her, and she is angry and cursing all of us, saying profanities and comments that would make a Hell's Angel blush. Her subtle, hidden beauty and youth now whisks away into the darkness of the cave, and her face becomes old and contorted. I try talking to her, but she will have none of it. Her mind is made up. When we reach the restaurant in Miraflores, the others go in as the monkey realizes she needs tampons, for she has forgotten to bring them on the trip. She also has not exchanged money and has none. Her boyfriend has none, and I escort her in search of a pharmacy while the others order food. Throughout the day, I am carrying a large backpack with nearly 30 pounds of things in it from our outing at the beach. It is heavy on my back, and I am hungry and tired. We walk together hastily as I search for a pharmacy and struggle to remember how to get back to the restaurant. I recall following this angry woman I don't know. I look back several times, sure I am going to get lost. All the while I am thinking about the bus we have to catch. She is still very angry, increasingly really, and now as I escort her, the focus of anger begins to be towards me. I am trying to help her across busy streets, and she just falls apart, deeper and deeper into darkness. We can't find what she needs, and she doesn't understand or realize that Peruvians don't really use tampons. They use pads, and she begins resenting me for her own helplessness. I actually stop her at one point and beg for her friendship, and that is a mistake. It just gives her more power, and I am on my damn knees. She only curses me and walks on. She has no money, no language skills, and now no friends, as she makes us her enemies. As we walk back to the restaurant, she insults me while rushing into busy city streets. Back at the restaurant, the others are unaware of our sad journey to the pharmacy. They are eating and laughing. The smells of the food are incredible, of fried rice and wonton soup. I am so upset, and Monkey is increasing her cursing and anger. The group quickly responds by ordering me food and trying to talk to her. Then, in an instant, she goes crazy. She screams, curses, and says things so vile I am confused, amazed. She says things to me about my mother I dare never to repeat. It angers me, and I struggle within myself to not reach out and strangle her weak little frame to death. The others see this in me and try to calm me down. Then Pablo, so hurt by the things she says to him, runs off into the Lima night. I walk off to protect myself as she is screaming now continuously in horrible tongues. I go to call Mario on the phone at Chabuca's. I tell him what's going on, and he understands me clearly. This was bound to happen with her, he says. Well, be prepared, Mario. We are going to try to get her out of here and home. She wants to go home, to San Diego. She has gone crazy. I hang up and look around at the Peruvian scene of cars and buildings. I don't want to go back to the restaurant. I don't want to find Pablo. I just want for this surreal and horrible experience to pass, but it is only the beginning. I return to the restaurant, and things have just gotten worse. She is not making any sense and begins to turn violent by hitting the table and pushing chairs. I go out to find Pablo. I am in my own delusion now, serving as guide and organizer for the trip. I believe that we still have a chance to make the bus and that all of this will pass. In about 30 minutes, somehow, we all come together on the sidewalk in front of the restaurant. Derek and I say goodbye to our two girls we met. We share long kisses, and we hope we will see them again as they get a taxi and drive off into the busy darkness of the night. We hail a small taxi and pile in. Derek and Berenice sit in front, and I sit in the back between Pablo and the monkey. We are pushed together, shoulder to shoulder. Basically, as you may have guessed, she continues to go crazy. Like a well-done and amazingly upsetting, twisted movie, she goes crazy. In heavy freeway traffic, she penetrates the dark passageways of her cave of insanity. She screams and hits me as she throws things out the car window, like her lipstick and little things from her purse. She begins attacking me in a cat-like frenzy, kicking me and pulling at my hair. I struggle to protect myself as the car erupts into shouts. She swings at me in a fury, hitting my face and arms. She begins spitting in our faces, continues her vile swearing. In the tiny space, I am so vulnerable, and I am forced to grab her in my defense. I wrap my arms around her in a bear hug as she screams in horror and disgust. I also struggle to keep Berenice from reaching over and hitting her, for as yet we have not done anything to her. We struggle together like animals in the back seat as everyone screams. When I have her in my arms and still, I talk to her and try to calm her down. She bites my shoulder with extreme force, and that breaks my grip, and I let her go. Her devilish fury erupts again, and she flips herself around, so now her legs are out the window of the taxi. She kicks, punches, and screams. I grab and pull her in as the taxi swerves and stops on the side of the freeway, and the driver begins yelling for all of us to get out. He wants us to smother alcohol on a rag and put it over her face, thinking that will calm her down. I have my hold around her tight and hold my hands gripping her mouth to protect from her bites. Powerful crying can be heard. Somehow, things calm down as she realizes we may push her out and leave her there, and the driver continues on. We reach our neighborhood, but not before she erupts again into the fury of screaming and violence. We stop in front of our neighborhood, and in her delusion, she doesn't believe we are home. She thinks we are trying to ditch her. Trying to tell her we are home and get her to get out of the car just makes her more crazy, and she fights with all her strength to not get out of the taxi. When we all spill out of the taxi, she runs off into the neighborhood, screaming. After we pay the driver, we go after her, telling her we are trying to help her and get her home. She attacks me as I get close, hitting me hard with her purse several times. Once she hit me in the head, and that hurt. I give up, truly. From deep inside my heart, I decide I have done enough, and I turn away from her and her violent screaming. As I walk away, she runs up behind me and hits me with great force in the back with her fist. That hurt very bad, but I just continue walking on, finding my way back to the house. I think about our bus to catch. Lost in my own confusion and disbelief, I can see people coming out of houses, and I hear her far away still screaming. In front of our house, I fall to the ground in silence and tears. My body and heart vibrate with distress and pain. I notice blood and cuts on my arms and hands. Victor, Chabuca's husband, opens the door, and I begin telling him a little of what is happening as I make my way to the backyard and the door to our room. There again I fall to the ground, head in my hands. Berenice returns and sits next to me, holds me for a while, and tells me I did all I could. She notices my cuts and that I have a black eye. Chabuca sits with me while the others go out to find Monkey. Derek returns in a panic, saying the cops are there, and she's sitting in a nearby park continuing to scream. She is saying I choked and raped her. The people are believing her and feeling sorry for her. The cops are coming to get you. You gotta split. I feel a panic and fear I had not known. There is nowhere I can go, nothing I can do, and Chabuca will not let me leave the house. I am confident that it will be all right, as I am very injured and she is not. Anyway, she is not making any sense, and we have witnesses. I walk out to the streets to find the park. I sit in a group of kids and watch from across the street. I see Derek run from the crowd, and several cops run after him. A cop comes over to me calmly. He wears a bulletproof vest and a machine gun at his side. He asks me what is going on and what has happened. I say I don't understand, and he walks away, not too concerned. Just then, Mario comes over to me with the scene. Mario gets me to run back to the house with him, talking along the way. We're going to get Victor and return with some money to pay off the cops, he says. At the house, I give him some money, and he hides it in his sock. Victor advises us that it will not take much money and to hide most of it. Chabuca keeps me at the house, and for over an hour I sit quiet after Mario has left. It turns out Mario and the others went to the police station after she had calmed down sufficiently. I put my sleeping bag out on the grass and crawl in. Pablo arrives at one point and packs all of the monkey's bags and then leaves. Mario and Victor arrive at about 11 p.m. from the police station. I am asleep, and when Mario leans over to wake me, I erupt into a scream of terror for a few seconds. He tells me that as he continued to scream. They called me a monkey. The cops began to believe our story and that she was crazy. A neighbor took her in for the night. Relieved, I fell off to sleep. As I sleep, Derek and Berenice go out drinking to laugh and let the pain subside. There is a door out of this cave of hell. I did not appear that we would make it out or that the pain would end, but it did. Mario gently wakes me at about 6 a.m. They are meeting the cops and going to the airport with her. They book her on a plane and say goodbye to her and the cops while I sleep in peace back at the house. When I awake and begin a slow morning of coffee and talking with Shabuka, a dear sweet woman, and her mother, Mario's grandmother, we sit and pray for the return from the airport. Derek and Berenice take off on a long adventure across town. Derek had left his passport with Estefita the day before by accident, and he had to go get it. The funny thing, though, I only realize this now, several months later, is that if Monkey had not gone crazy, then we would have been forced to. The funny thing, though I only realize this now, several months later, is that if Monkey had not gone crazy, then we would have been forced with Derek's lost passport. We would have missed the bus anyway, and a whole day waiting for Derek to get it, and me to buy all new tickets. When Mario and Pablo return, we go on our own adventure as we had missed the bus and the night before and have to get new tickets. Mario tells us of a dream he had that night. I saw shadows walking, mysterious and ominous shadows. They carried a casket, a coffin, and were loading the casket into a jetliner. I woke with a sense of peace, knowing we would continue on with our pilgrimage. Afternoon in Arequipa. As you know, we arrived in Lima, met family and friends, and for 3 days we saw many things. It was in many ways a great start to our adventure. One thing is for sure, being a tour guide is a lot of hard work, but the things I learn and see are priceless, and besides, I lived through it. While in Lima, we purchased our bus tickets at the Ormeño station downtown the day after the monkey incident. It is $38 for the 14-hour ride to Arequipa. We arrive at the station at 10 p.m., happy, laughing after a great dinner. We usually find meals for about $1 to $2, consisting of a soda, soup, and a 3-part main course. If you are trying to save money, then look closely when you make purchases. Also, there is a big difference in comfort between a $10 bus ride and a $30 bus ride, so keep this in mind. The seats of the expensive buses are very large and comfortable. They even recline so you can sleep. We find out later in the trip just how cold and horrible it can be on an old bus when you are at 14,000 feet and the windows leak an icy breeze. Most long bus rides in Peru drive by night, so you don't get to see much. At 11 p.m., the bus rolls out on the busy streets of Lima and roars away. In a short time, we are on the 2-lane highway, weaving down the coast, drinking rum and laughing. The first stop after a few hours is the quiet fishing town of Pisco, a beach hideaway. Close by are other quaint towns. Here you'll find the Reserva Nacional de Paracas, Peru's famous bird and marine sanctuary. You can hire a boat, surf, walk the town finding great things to buy, and eat or just relax in the central plaza and watch the girls. I learned several years later about the incredible waves that break around the small islands in the bay. Continuing a short way down the coast and inland lies the town of Ica. Ica boasts over 150,000 people, is surrounded by giant sand dunes, and is centered along the river that gives its name, the Rio Ica. It is a wonderful old town, quiet and trapped in time where one can taste wine and tour interesting museums. After a few more hours, the Pan American Highway enters the desert town of Nazca, inland on the desert plains. Here, people stay to learn about the ancient cultures of the area. Most importantly is the $45 plane ride to view the huge geometric designs drawn on the desert floor. There are monkeys and lizards 180 meters long. Our bus passes through Nazca at dawn as a strange fog covers the deserts. Faraway mountains and hills rise through the fog, resembling islands on a calm silver sea. At this point, we are still only halfway to Arequipa, and another 7 hours of road stretches before us. I reflect upon the difficult days behind and create hope for the days ahead while listening to sound recordings I have made. The highway returns to the coast, now rocky and steep. Endless panoramas curl below the highway along cliffs and unreachable beaches where large surf crashes in from out of the fog. With the many turns and hair-raising drops, this is a beautiful yet nerve-wracking part of the trip. At the coastal village of Camaná, the highway begins up through the desert foothills and into the high-altitude land of volcanoes. In Camaná, we pass through a large river valley, green with cultivation and surrounded by dry red and golden earth. The rocky moonlight landscape drinks the rare and large river spilling down from the Andes Mountains. It seems that we will never get there, but to see any country by bus is a good way to get to know it. It is long, but not tiring, and we will eventually arrive. Volcanoes come into view, tall pyramid cones capped in ice. Arequipa sits at 8,000 feet above sea level, contains nearly 1 million people, and is surrounded by large volcanic mountains. The inspiring peaks of El Misti and Chanchani at 19,100 and 19,900 feet rise directly above the city. It looks as if a daily outing could put you on the summit, but actually the ascent is quite demanding, taking several days. In town, the buildings are mostly built of a white volcanic rock and lie in a state of constant repair from the heavy earthquakes that rock the unstable region. In Arequipa, wander and relax at the Plaza de Armas, visit the monastery, the cathedral, and enjoy the subtle Peruvian hospitality. Arequipa is famous for its food and beer made from corn called chicha. It is so delicious. The people of this city claim a certain superiority and refer to the area as La República de Arequipa, the Republic of Arequipa. Many well-known celebrities live here, like Playboy's famous Vargas girls, poets like Cesar Vallejo, and many others. Southern Peru has a wealth of travel possibilities of which we barely begin to explore. Arequipa is the gateway to Chile, Bolivia, and our next destination along the famed high-altitude Lake Titicaca, along the shores of the Peruvian city Puno. With my new volunteer job as tour guide in training, we continue our adventure, and at every turn I find myself counting heads, backpacks, and money as I move our haphazard and half-drunken crew of artists from hostel to bus through mountains and deserts on our pilgrimage to Machu Picchu. Ceremony of the Soil, Lake Titicaca. At this point in our journey, we are in the highlands of southern Peru and the city of Arequipa. We spent the afternoon relaxing in the Plaza de Armas between our two 14-hour bus rides. We are near to completing our mission of the soil transfer and joining in the symbolic Renacimiento Indígena, the indigenous renaissance. There is some confusion as there are two stations right next to each other, and we go to the wrong one. There was no problem, just a little drama as I led the group a little off track. At the correct station, the ticket agent kindly stored our mini bags in safety while we enjoyed a fun day on the town. Don't forget to pay your tax in the station before you go to board the bus or they'll send you back. We pay our taxes, buy some snacks for the long ride, and board the humble and crowded bus. Beggars come aboard to walk by and ask for change. Storytellers stand in front to spin tales of their ruined lives, and common people of the highlands sit beside us in their colorful clothes and wool hats. A baby behind me cries like mad as the golden sun flares and sparks nearing the horizon. Orange and yellows, turn to green as the sun sets, and soon we begin on our way. This bargain-priced bus makes many stops as it moves across the highlands. Just outside of town, the bus kicks off the woman with the baby that was continuing to scream. The seats are small and uncomfortable on this economical $5 12-hour bus ride. Sometimes in the middle of the night, the bus stops at a restaurant surrounded by cold, clear air, still and bright stars. There are meteors and satellites moving across the sky as we stand out in the dark along the road beneath the sky. We look for satellites and constellations laughing in the cold air. "Hey, Professor," Mario says, "what's this I see?" "It's the Southern Cross," I say, clear to us for the first time. There is the time for a cheese sandwich before continuing towards Puno. Dawn opens our eyes to the green altiplano as we drive through villages nestled on the shores of Lake Titicaca. Puno is Peru's port city on the edge of the lake whose name means the gray jaguar. Lake Titicaca borders Bolivia and is a memorable stopping point between these two countries. An amazing part of the journey is all the childhood memories that come out of Mario, things he clearly had forgotten 30 years away from his homeland. There is an old saying in Peru that if you are bad, they will send you to Puno. This is a very distant place, and yes, the altitude is rough on the body. At 12,500 feet, most visitors need a day or two of rest in order to acclimatize. Berenice is bedridden with AMS, acute mountain sickness, and so is Pablo. As a mountain climber, I myself know the deep misery of AMS, and once you get it, it is nearly impossible to get rid of it unless you go down in altitude. On the South American altiplano, that's impossible. The lake is 19 miles across and has several islands. The altitude makes the sky clear and deep colors, so journeys on the lake are unforgettable. Puno is a small colonial town, quiet and with many clean hotels. We find rooms for $5 and they even have hot water. We put Berenice and Pablo in bed and go out cruising. All things in town are in walking distance, and walking is just the thing to do. And after so much driving, we tour the fabulous food markets that crowd the streets and make our way through the menus of several restaurants for meals at around $2. While walking through an open market, Derek films continuously as usual. A woman cutting pigs throws a chunk of meat at us. Along the waterfront is a small rock pier surrounded by tour boats and the old steamship that is now a museum. There you'll find people selling wonderful items like sweaters, hats, and instruments. The bargains are great out here on the Altiplano, far from the heavy tourism of Cusco. On the second day, we plan to perform the central part of our pilgrimage to Machu Picchu. We have with us some holy earth from a sacred area back in San Diego, Chicano Park. With that soil comes the symbolic heart, soul, and spirit of North America. We bring the soil to perform a ceremonial gift exchange with the priests who live out on the sacred waters of Lake Titicaca. Of course, we do this to spread peace. For a small fee of $5 to $10, you can join a tour on the lake. Along this all-day tour, you visit the floating islands of the Uros people. These are indigenous people who live on islands that they make out of reeds. They harvest these reeds and make their boats, homes, and islands out of them. The Uros Islands are wonderful, but your stay is short as the powerboat continues another 2.5 hours across the lake to the island of Taquili. This island is unique, with people dressed in colorful clothes and living as they have for hundreds of years. Certain clothes and hats define social characteristics of each person. The island is 3.5 miles long and has a small village. The tour guide listens to our story during the long ride, and he arranges for us to meet with the political leader of the island to perform our gift exchange. Fortunato of Taquili Island receives our soil with the intent of using it in their own ceremonies this spring when he will enter the sacred stone temple on the island and place the soil at its center. He also gives us some soil from his island to take with us as we continue on our pilgrimage to Machu Picchu. It is hard to express or forget the subtle beauty of the lake area. Silvery waters stretch off to the horizon, blanketed by a deep blue mountain sky. Far across the lake are the bumps of mountains, hills, and hints of glaciers. We walk on the shore across the sharp, broken rocks and boulders to find a secluded spot. Steep cliffs rise above, leading to houses on the island's top. We have just enough time to take a swim and perform another ceremony. We offer soil to the waters, one by saying a prayer or something. As always, I take photographs and record the sound, while Solarman films our adventures for movies we hope to make. We save a little soil for Berenice, who is back at the dock and sick from the altitude. After filming Berenice making her own soil offering, we board the boat for the return to Puno as I pour the last of my rum into a half-gone bottle of Coke. Throughout the strange and difficult first week of the busy trip, this is a welcoming chance to relax and get some needed healing. On the way home, the humming boat cuts a slender wake as a calm breeze puts me at ease, cruising on the sacred waters of Lake Titicaca, Peru. The belly button of the world. We are finally on the bus to Cusco, the belly button of the world, leaving Puno on Lake Titicaca, traveling the land route from Lima south through Arequipa, then north through the Altiplano and the Andes. The rides total over 30 hours, but this way we enjoyed the view of the country and some quiet time to process all the events of the journey. I sit next to a man from Cusco, and we talk as the bus rises out of the foothills above Puno. The city lights twinkle bright in contrast to the massive black form of the lake. This ride is a little rough, another all-night ride, cold and uncomfortable. I sleep on and off, waking to wipe the water off the inside of the window to see out at the hills and mountains rushing by. There are amazing stars, and at one point I see a large meteor fall from the sky and pass behind a nearby mountain to then reappear before burning out. At 2 a.m., the bus stops as police officials search the bus. They single out Peruvians, avoiding the tourists, and even make a few step outside to open all their bags. We reach Cusco at 3 a.m., with a taxi waiting to take us to our hostel in the beautiful Plaza San Blas. When you travel by air and fly directly to Cusco from Lima, the altitude change will force you to need a rest. Because we came the long way and through the higher plateau of Lake Titicaca, we are already through the AMS hell and are acclimated, feeling pretty good. Cusco lies in a beautiful section of the country, the heart of the Inca Empire, the gateway to Machu Picchu, and deep within the Andes Mountains. The entire region is covered with archaeological wonders amidst an equally awesome landscape. Much of the center of town is built atop original Inca interlocking stones. The colonial buildings are impressive, showing their 16th century opulence and availability of cheap labor. Many of the residents speak the native language Quechua. They intersperse their words with Spanish as they talk. As we walk the streets near the Plaza de Armas, we see several beautiful cathedrals and streets that have not changed for centuries. There are so many things to do. Visit the South American Explorers Club. Great bars, gift stores, and nightclubs. Many buy the boleto turistico to enter all the cathedrals, museums, and Inca ruins. Others seek out the many local medicine men or shamans to travel up into the hills to sacred caves or ruins for rituals and baptisms. Short drives take us out of the valley of Cusco, along the steep and rocky hills covered in the greens of the tropics. Down the valley's one day's drive rises the massive volcano El Nevado Azongate at 20,900 feet. This is an impressive mountain. Above the town lies the Temple of the Moon, an ancient cave and platform of rock. There we see the deep clouds move in with continuous cracks of lightning. Deep grays, blues, and purples envelop the sky as day turns to night. Below, the city becomes a blaze of lights. The cathedrals and plazas sparkle as jewels, and we begin a long walk through the hills and into the Plaza San Blas. Many say the plaza is one of the most romantic in all of South America. I have seen a few and cannot disagree. It is perfectly safe and generally quiet. A wall of cascades fall below the curved stairway that enter the plaza from above. Along gardens, bars, and stores in a cathedral, you come around to the front. There we sit on the steps alone or with friends below the entrance to this church. Strangely, though, it is the only open area to pee, and often you see locals go off to the side and pee on the church wall or in the flowers along the side. Often the lovely plaza smells really bad. This is typical in Peru, and it is very dirty and poor. Cusco is a special place. We make a lot of friends there, quickly, for it is an open town with people from all over the world who come to chase their dreams. We are no exception, and we fall into the rhythm of exploration. We begin the days at a bakery just below the Plaza San Blas on the main street to enjoy dark, fresh coffee and hot pastries. Sometimes, when on a bargain hunt, we go down and across the plaza through the arch to San Pedro and the Mercado Central to get fresh juices and ceviche. We quickly make contacts with other artists and people in town to work on our projects. One of our missions is a dream of building a cultural center in Cusco, centered around a children's museum. While performing a children's art workshop at the local elementary school, we find that many of the children want to be artists, and mothers week so their children can take part in our workshop. Each day in Cusco is a joy, and you make the walk through the plaza. It begins to feel like home. For every one thing you discover, there are two more. Cusco is a great magnet, drawing people from all over the world for many diverse reasons. Enter this great funnel and find your own reasons at the center in the belly button of the world, Cusco, Peru. The ayahuasca tour. The afternoon is spent with Angel, a shaman, touring the central market and the curanderas or witch market to buy things for the ritual. We make one last stop at the house to pick up some maracas. His son was attacked by a dog and was rushed off to the hospital with face injuries. He would be okay, and Angel feels it would be good if we go ahead with the ritual. Besides, we're paying him. We begin a taxi into the hills above Cusco on the road to Urubamba Valley. We are dropped off near a hill of granite and caves called the Temple of the Moon. Huge clouds gather rain on the west side of the valley, and wind from above blows deep down, keeping the storm away from our ridge for a while. The giant and sacred volcano El Nevado al Sangate looms in the east, and rare sight during the rainy season of summer. The sun sinks behind the storm clouds as dusk settles in. Deep grays, blues, and purples envelop the sky, and lightning becomes as the storm moves toward us across the canyon. Thunderclaps soon surround us, and in the dark we sit in a circle on the temple platform to begin. We move by flashlight off the boulders and cliffs and into the main temple cave to give offerings and receive the healing ritual. We share the sacred jungle wine, ayahuasca, as Angel reads our oracles from the rocks and shells he tosses across the altar. For each of us, he performs a water purification ritual. It's a sort of baptism by water, flowers, and eucalyptus, and a condor wing. This is to set our hearts free and clean. Afterwards, in a hallucinating blur that lasts several days, we walk outside below the stars and begin the long walk through the fields and hilltop ghettos into the valley of Cusco. After a day of rest, the 5 a.m. alarm wakes us, and we quickly dress and begin putting our extra bags and gear into the hostel storage. By taxi, we quickly reach the train station across from the central market in San Pedro. After coffee and snacks, we board the Machu Picchu train for the amazing 5-hour ride through the Urubamba Valley and down into the cloud forests of the Andes to Machu Picchu. The noisy train rocks and squeaks, honks its horn, and puffs its nasty diesel smoke as it follows the tangled river into the mists and mountains which soar above. In Aguas Calientes, the village below the ruin, We find our comfortable hostel and begin exploring for fun, food, and bargains. After our meal and shopping, we walk down the wide dirt road to the ruins. It follows the twisting and raging river. Derek soon turns back. Pablo and Mario continue slow, and Berenice and I hike swift, intending on going the 5 miles to the entrance before nightfall. At the entrance, they take our money, ask us when we will come out, and inform us we are the only people in the entire complex. Through the gate, we enter the many stone steps and the transformative experience that is Machu Picchu. We walk the main path, descending to the large fields of grass at the center. Darkness falls, and we strain to see the path towards where we came. We hear a strange animal call. I answer back, a little startled, and we realize it is Pablo, who has followed us and snuck in alone. We join together on a large boulder, looking into and out of the shadowed panoramic. Encircling the ruins and peaks of Huayna Picchu flashes silent lightning, balls of light that flash out below the clouds without a sound. The sky above the ruins luckily parts, revealing a circle of sky and pulsing depth of sky and stars. It is so very amazing, just us, here alone in Machu Picchu. We sit in awe and relaxation, counting the fleeting shadows of ghosts darting between stone walls and across terraces of grass. We giggle and tell stories. Then suddenly we notice a strange glowing thing in the wet grass at our feet, a tiny little glowing caterpillar inching through the towering blades of grass, just barely visible. The neon green light wiggles in the grass, the mystic glow worm of Machu Picchu. At around 8:30, we begin our walk up the many steps back to the entrance. We get there to find that the gate man has left and locked the gate, and us in. From there, we work as a climbing team, hanging off the high railing and swinging off the cliff and around the entrance gate. The gate man hears us and comes out angry and yelling at Pablo that he needs to pay. They walk off into the darkness as I climb back inside to get Derek's hat Berenice forgot on the other side. The gate man watches me. From there, it takes us 2 hours to walk down the 5-mile dirt road through the deep jungle. With clouds overhead and darkness is pure and deep. You can barely see the dirt of the road. What you can see is the inconceivably dark depths of the jungle alongside the road, and you know not to walk into that. When we reach Aguas Calientes at 11 p.m., we find Mario having pizza and a few beers down in the plaza. We sit and laugh together, enjoying the wonderful journeys in the arms of Peru. Salcantay, the Devil Mountain. The Peruvian Andes are a maze of mountains, rivers, and canyons, with sky, clouds, and sun that mix in a patchwork of ever-changing hues and moods. When I flew from Lima to Cusco, passing close to the massive 20,500-foot walls of rock and tumbling fluted ice of El Nevado Salcantay, I had no idea that in just a few days I would be walking around this mountain. It is quite difficult to remember all that I experienced after so many days of travel. Basically, I spend the day walking below the cathedrals in the Plaza de Armas of downtown Cusco. It is just days after Christmas, and processions still pass by with banging drums and trumpets. Usually they carry some sort of a saint into the cathedral. As I walk, I meet a friend, Angel, the shaman. We talk and he tells me a story of a river and an ocean. He begins, "Let the woman drink from the river if she is thirsty. The river needs to flow into the sea." Relax and be free, I think he is trying to say. I bump into another friend along my serpentine journey of discovery. I meet Mauro, another shaman, and we settle into conversations and we sit in his shop in Inca antiques and clothes. We talk about how much we want to go to the mountains together and how he wants to take me to some sacred summits. A few weeks before, he had baptized me in an Inca temple. He wants to take me, but says, "Come back tomorrow," as I have to wait, meditate, and listen for a message. We share hugs, and I go on my way back down the stone streets to the plaza. Then I take a risk, searching for my own message. I look for what appears a reputable and busy travel company, and I enter to present myself and ask for a job, showing my portfolio of panoramic photographs from the Himalaya and the Sierra. I receive an offer to accompany a trek into the mountains and take photos for the company. I jump at the chance, and in minutes I am signing the company registry, finishing a few errands in town, and returning to where I was living to pack my mountain gear. I spend the evening with my friend Carolina, walking in the sudden rain to dinner and later relaxing hand in hand on a cold night under the stars in a plaza. Later we drink from the river of love to quench our thirst of use, as the shaman said I should do. In the morning I wake at 3:30 a.m., shoulder my pack, say goodbye to Carolina, and make my way to the travel office in the plaza. As I sit on the bench near the grass and fountain, the clubs begin to empty out. Pulsing sounds of techno music fill the streets as sexy and drunk disco goers pass by. I buy a coffee from a young boy selling cups from a thermos in a cardboard box. It keeps me warm as I wait for the bus in the darkness. Just after dawn, we pack into the third world bus, uncomfortable and crowded, and begin a 2-hour drive into the steep mountains and mist-filled Andes. After an hour, somewhere seemingly lost, we have a flat tire and stop for a moment to change it. After another hour on a dirt road, steeply up, narrow, and overgrown with plants, we arrive at the mountain village of Limatombo. There we meet our team of 3 horses, a guide, 2 cooks, and 2 helpers. They have food and all the gear to make our trek enjoyable. From there, we travel for 3 days, hiking 6 to 8 hours a day. The first day takes us through the forested tropical foothills rising up out of the valley of Limatombo. We follow one of the old and sacred Inca trails that makes its way through the ancient and extinct volcano towards Machu Picchu. The land flows with streams, vines, and flowers. Birds dart at every turn, and we hunt with our eyes for parrots. That first afternoon, we make it to the meadow, or pampa, at about 14,000 feet, a vast pampa of grass and snaking streams nestled below huge glaciated walls of the peaks rising up into the clouds. Just before sunset, the clouds clear, and up the valley I see the towering peak, El Nevado Salcantay, a dome of clouds sucked to its summit looking something like a white UFO. The next day, we make the long hike along the glacier below the great walls of the volcano to climb up through a pass at 17,000 feet. There, alongside the mighty 5,000-foot wall of tumbling and cracking glaciers, we pray and place stones on the sacred altar built up over the ages by passers-by. The weather changes often, and we stop every hour to pray for good luck and good weather by sipping rum, praying a little, and placing coca leaves under the rocks. We make it through the pass, descend, and make camp an hour below in a pampa along a milky river in thick grass, quiet and shrouded in mist. The journey, while complete, is not over. We have another day to slowly descend away from this cold paradise and return into the forested and river-filled canyons along the Inca Trail back to Cusco. I ask the guide for the meaning of Salcantay and the native Inca language of Quechua, and he responds, Salcantiana. It is difficult to define. Salca means deva, devil, or untouchable thing, like bad spirit or powerful energy. Tiana means living or place where it lives, the Devil Mountain. In Inca time, people, they came to this mountain and make prayers and to bring bad people here to bury them. This mountain is understood to be the untouchable mountain, sacred and ominous, a repository of power, energy, and wisdom. If trekking in the wilderness interests you, then take the time and explore yourself and your world high within the wondrous expanse of the Peruvian Andes. Explorations in Artivism. Some days I ask myself, what are you doing here? Why did I leave San Diego during the peak of summer just as I finally feel strong and healthy and as my friends begin to gather around me in a hoop of dance and music? I am here in Cusco, Peru again, during a cold spell that chills the bones, the Peruvian winter. I suppose it is a restless spirit of adventure that grips me, a desire and passion to expand and experience distant places, mountains, cities, jungles, and people. The truth about this adventure seems far fetched and wild, so I just say it's a self funded art exchange and language program. That sounds more official, but the truth is not so hard to understand. The Free Trade Agreement of the Americas, which opened trade restrictions between Canada, USA, Mexico, and South America, has changed the world as we know it. What free trade, we ask, as all things come with a price, and we organized our group of artists to explore this new open relationship by traveling to Peru to expand the trade of culture, art, ideas, and freedom. Peru is like a last frontier, open and new, and it has arrived out of a long past of revolution and poverty with a new democratic hope. In the struggling cities, as always, art is a form of expression and hope. This artistic expression is a key element in society and civilization. We understand this and enter Peru to help focus their vision of the future, build hopeful solutions, and create humane progress. We are activists, artists, and work to unite these elements into a struggle for peace we call artivism. We are Fuerza, a group of USA Mexico artists working to create unity. In San Diego, we promote our plan of a downtown arts district and work with communities and schools painting public murals to foster goodwill and pride in the community. We take these same ideas and travel to Peru to initiate a cross-cultural arts exchange called Pilgrimage to Machu Picchu. In July 2002, we completed our second trip to Peru, accompanied by 7 other artists and cultural workers. We worked to establish cultural arts centers, an urban arts district, painted murals for elementary schools, and worked with the Art University teaching and painting murals. The journey began in December 2001, when we took 2 fistfuls of holy earth from Chicano Park, San Diego, and through a guided Indian ritual spread it on the waters of Lake Titicaca and in the cloud forests of Machu Picchu. In return, we brought back holy earth from these Peruvian holy sites and planted it in San Diego. In Lima, we joined forces with El Laverno Cultural Center, a cultural arts center. There we began murals on their buildings and others nearby. As other artists and community leaders joined in, the concept evolved into the idea of muralizing the entire 2 blocks. The municipality of Lima has backed the idea and offered to help under the office called Pro Lima. In working with Pro Lima, we have begun to organize the La Quilca Arts District Master Plan. El Naverno, located on the street Giron Quilca, has been the epic center of cultural change and alternative expression for years, and has captured the attention of the media, the sympathy of the locals, and the support of the broad intellectual elements in Lima. El Naverno began as a weird, even controversial organization, but now the city has changed its position and has begun supporting and encouraging our cultural efforts. On this journey, we are fortunate to mount 2 art exhibitions with the paintings we brought with us. Joan Sanchez of our group creates conceptual and documentary films during the trip, which are shown at the exhibition in Lima. For several days, we travel with an ex-mayor to a poor town called Paramonga. There we meet with community and political leaders to discuss the possibilities of helping their beach community rise out of poverty and pollution. We begin with several public murals at elementary schools while we explore the city and the many archaeological wonders nearby. We have the privilege of visiting the newly designated oldest city in Americas, Caral. It is now said to be over 5,100 years old, filled with over 32 massive pyramids, mostly unexplored. We hope in the future to raise money, clothing, and aid for the people of Paramonga with the Adopt a City project. While in Lima and Cusco, we focus our attention on the 2 art universities, Escuela de Bellas Artes, and our future plans of organizing a group of USA, Mexico, and Peruvian artists to go to the Latin American Biennale. At the art schools, we give lectures on the history of the Mexican mural movement and the civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s in the USA. Finally, we produce murals with the students. The country is thirsty for change and new ideas. We are welcomed with open doors at every turn. With the help of the national press, TV, and newspapers, our dreams come alive as we find ourselves in meetings, planning, and realizing the master plan. The people are open, kind, and creative, searching for a way out of their struggle, giving young art students and children an open space to paint and express their ideas is a very new thing, and they jump at the chance, with their professors following along. Our mission is a success, but only just beginning, and we look to the support and involvement of more people as the project grows. The Sun God Festival, Inti Raymi, Cusco. As usual, Mario and I wake up early. We go over some final changes on our exhibition poster before going to the Cultural Center El Averno and meet with our local organizers Leila and Jorge. Across the street at the restaurant with our Cristo Che mural, we have a breakfast and talk, finalizing the poster over eggs and toast. We return to the hostel for our bags and arrange rooms for our return in 1 week. The seven of us then, with backpacks and luggage, walk to the bus station about 5 blocks down the road, the Boulevard La Quilca in downtown Lima. Elsa and Anna are there hanging out, and we convinced Ricardo to pay for Anna to join our group to Cusco. It is great. Mario is already sponsoring the local artist poet Virginia to go, and one more Peruvian in the group is a great expansion to our idea of cross-cultural exchange. Besides, they both want to get lucky. By 2 p.m. we are on the bus heading out of town, and Anna will come on another bus the next day as our bus is sold out. The bus roars out of the urban expanse of Lima along the Pan American Highway down the coast. We quickly pass the giant ruins of Pachacamac and soon after the great waves of Punta Hermosa. I sleep off and on, and at 9 p.m. we stop in Nazca, inland on the desert plains. The bus breaks down, and for 2 hours they try to fix it, and then for 6 hours we wait for another bus to come from Lima. At 5 a.m., we load the new bus and continue on. The drive is like off-roading through the Himalaya or Nepal and into Tibet, except we are on a paved road and in a big bus watching Hollywood movies with Spanish subtitles. Evil is the lack of empathy, something I learned in a movie about World War II and the Nazis. We move from the desert up through rough and twisted mountains. By mid-morning, we are at 13,000 feet. High on the altiplano and feeling sick on the twisted road as towering volcano cones peek off in the distance. Strange tan and red colors make horizontal lines. Deep blue sky stretches above and large lake forms where snow has melted. We eventually drop into huge canyons after going through the last high pass. Large rivers and rough dirt roads become our way before we arrive at the high-altitude town of Abancay at 3 p.m. for a meal. The last 6 hours cross many deep and forested canyons before becoming more and more tropical. The last canyon exposes our closest view of enormous mountains covered in glacier. The last 2 hours into the valley of Cusco at 9 p.m. with plenty of time to enjoy the night. We take a taxi to the Plaza San Blas and the Hospedaje San Blenio, where we stayed on our last trip 6 months before. This little artist community is unforgettable. We wait for our rooms to be cleaned, then shower and go out for dinner. After dinner, we go to the youthful and enjoyable club of Mama Africa to dance in the pulsing lights and international crowd. The night continues late with tours around the Plaza de Armas looking for our friend Pablo, Mario's son, who we believe has arrived from San Diego on his own. The night ends at the internet cafes to stay connected. It is Monday, June 24th, a cold morning. I check the desk for a note from Pablo, then Mario and I go out for breakfast while the others sleep. We move down the narrow stone streets as taxis squeeze by. After a few phone calls, we hang around on the Plaza de Armas below the cathedral as crowds slowly gather and speaker systems are put into place. A woman tells us when the festival will start, and we return to the hostel to meet up with everyone. Ricardo is gone, and the Sanchezes want to stay in a while and change to their own room, so Mario and I rush off alone and into the massive crowd gathering in the plaza. The dancers begin, entering with the scores of costume musicians at about 11. The first show lasts over an hour with big bands of flutes, drums, singers, rain sticks, bird calls, and the Inca sun god speaking loud to the sound system. They march out of the plaza, creating a parade, and we follow the Inca runners up the steep steps and walkways to Sacsayhuaman, the ruins of the great Inca fort of interlocking stones, mostly destroyed during the battles of the conquest. I am alone, walking around the ruins in festival until 3, enjoying the sounds and sights within the temple. I record the sounds of multiple bands, conversations, and for 4 hours the flutes and drums repeat. I leave early, walking the stone pathways off the hillside and back to our hostel in the Plaza San Blas. I meet Yuri back at the plaza, then the Sanchez's for dinner. Everyone is together for a moment before we break up for a drink at the crowded Cross Keys pub and the European crowd. We search for our casa de barra and a party with Los Negros, live African drumming under the stars in an old courtyard that burns with a great fire in the center. We dance and drink cheap wine from Chincha, the city created south of Lima, and houses the slaves. We dance until late. I didn't know it then, but my friend Carol found a new boyfriend, and I was beside him for most of the night. Long-haired young hippie drummer from Argentina with the common nickname Che. In the language of the Inca, Quechua, we say Wilca Uma, head flower, and with that we enter the realm of the open mind and the creative mind through the journey of the ayahuasca. Go to Peru for the simple reason that the experience will open your mind and give you great joy. For every one thing you discover, there are 2 more. The Peruvian Winter. I did not get home from Carol's house until 4 a.m. after a night of laughter and dance among the smiles of Cusco girls and cheap Peruvian rum. Just 6 months before, I fell in love with Carol, thinking she could be the one, the soulmate. But when I left to the USA, we knew it could never be unless I turned my life inside out and moved to Cusco. So our meeting turned out to be just a sort of long honeymoon. We kept in touch and remained friends, and I am here again and overjoyed to share the friendships in this mysterious fold of life I share in Peru. Despite my desire to have this night and experience never end, I break away from Carol and her 3 friends. They continue on to a club to dance, leaving me to struggle with a beautiful young woman from Tarapoto. She looks deep into me and begins to give freely, but I break away and make my way across the plaza of downtown Cusco. I am on my way towards the passionate magnet of the mountains, and their embrace is more important to me than a fling with a beautiful woman from the jungle. The love of a woman is fleeting, sifting through my fingers like sand or moving as a shadow along the curve of a busy city street at night. I seek then the ever-twisting winds and cracking glaciers and subtle colors of magnificent mountains. I sleep for an hour, shoulder the terribly heavy pack, and return to the plaza to catch a taxi a few blocks to the bus. I try to pack light, leaving out things like a tent, ice axe, and other important items, but I always travel prepared, and that means a lot of gear. Hiking alone in the Andes is a simple yet serious affair. The old bus is jammed with people. I continually fall asleep on the woman next to me. The sun rises as we come through the 12,000-foot mountains of Cusco and drop into the deep canyon, seeing for the first time the giant glacial peaks across on the other side. These are my goal, and unlike 6 months before on my first trip, I will be entering alone this time, without mules or guides. In addition, it is July, during the peak of the Peruvian winter. For 2 hours on the bus from hell, we pass through the strange tropical wonder of the Andes towards the high mountain town of Mollepata. Upon reaching the plaza of this old village, I begin hiking swiftly up the steep and rough road, trying always to remember the way I went the first time. I share the road and the trail with two young children walking to their homes high in the forest. One child holds a radio and we enjoy the Peruvian rhythms as we walk into the mountains. High on a ridge, I rest on a grassy knoll, joined by a group of Israeli hikers with their mules and guide. They share tea with me and then continue on ahead as I hike slow under my heavy pack. A few hours more, and I make camp high on a ridge near a farmhouse after I ask permission from the owner to camp on his grass. He says I can camp for free and use his water. I quickly set up my plastic tarp shelter before the afternoon rains begin to fall. The rain comes and goes, revealing a sunny afternoon of rainbows. The family, just a short distance away, sits together in the sun on a log in front of their humble house. They are watching me, watching them, watching me. The little girl comes by to see my shelter and get her young calf as her mother and father kiss romantically in the sun. At 5:15, the sun moves behind the towering peaks at the head of the canyon, casting a purple shadow across the glaciers, ridge, and Emerald Canyon. Each day is choreographed with a clear and cold dawn, turning to an afternoon rain or snow when I hide inside my plastic shelter. Just before sunset, the storms clear to a calm night of unbelievable stars. For 6 days and nights I move up the canyon, making my way towards the snow. I camp in the grass along the gentle streams, occasionally met by young children or families living in the high mountains. I always place my shelter so I can lie in my sleeping bag and see a particular view of peak and valley. The sound of my plastic sheeting and the wind are my clock as I sit out the rainy afternoons, rest my tired body. At sunset, as the dark At sunset, as the sky clears, I see views down the canyon and across the Andes. The purple shadow again pushes across the folded expanse. The sky a blue-violet, the glacier a brilliant blue-green, and the land yellow-green interspersed with red. At night I marvel at the stars, sounds of frogs, and the many passing meteors. I make it up to the last meadow, or pampa, and begin the steep hike up the snow along the side of the glacial moraine. The many horses and mules passing through daily cut a path 7 feet high in the snow. It is like a hallway of ice and snow with twisted mud and rocks below your feet. For a day I camp in the snowfield along the glacier. It is calm and peaceful. Standing on the edge of the glacial moraine is like being on the edge of a volcano and looking down. Far up the glacier lies the 6,000-foot ice wall of the mountain. Clouds swirl and conceal the mountain. When the sun comes out, it is blinding. And even when the clouds cover your world, the light is piercing. I hear giant thunderclaps from my camp and look up to the sky to check the clouds. I realize that the claps are not thunder, but avalanches, and I quickly climb to the edge of the moraine to look up at the great mountain. Then I see huge chunks of the hanging glacier crack off the wall, exploding in a resounding thunder that shakes the mountain. The giant wall turns into a white waterfall of snow, rock, and ice. From my seat, over a mile from the wall, I sit in safety and wonder as monster crashes of ice billow into clouds at the foot of the mountain. Then I return to my camp and the warmth of my sleeping bag below the stars. Like the infinite embracing love of a woman, the mountains are the mother that surrounds us. During this journey of discovery, I entered again the wonderland of the Peruvian Andes. It was lonely and quiet, but I saw things without and within that transform the spirit and bring great happiness. I will always remember this trip and this chance of experiencing something new and singular alone in the mountains. For several years I have traveled to sacred, unique places, searching as a pilgrim on a spiritual path. In many ways, this trip has completed the cycle. The pilgrimage begun with the trip to Mount Everest. So again, all is new, and I begin again towards a new goal, a new search on this journey of discovery.